Hey guys, this is Amer Beg, professional race car driver and automotive expert on behalf of the Valve team to talk to you about the all-new Skoda that we have here. It is a Skoda. With Skoda, let's try and find out, because it first came in as a Skoda Octavia in the early 2000s in India, and then it got rebadged as the Laura, as some of you know and must have owned, and now we have it back again as a Skoda Octavia. So what's happening with Skoda in India? Let's try and find out. Skoda started off in the Indian market as an entry luxury segment car with the Octavia in around 2002. And this dominated the entry luxury segment market for quite some time. No other car really did have this sort of dominance like the Octavia. Let's get into more detail and try and find out what the Skoda Octavia is all about. So, the Octavia is all new at the very front. It's taken a lot of its cues from the Skoda Superb. As you can see, it's got this mid-drift line coming from the front. It's got sharper edges all along the front as well, which gives it that premium look that it's taken from the Superb. In fact, the chrome line that we have running at the very front at the bottom over here also comes from the Skoda Superb. What I also like, and we at the Valve team enjoy over here, is this quad headlamp that it has now. It also has daytime LED running lights, which gives the car a much more posh and plush feel as well. People in this segment want to have something that gives them a little bit more, let's say, oomph or bang for their buck, and this car sort of brings that to the table. So let's have a look under the hood as to what the Skoda Octavia looks like. The Octavia comes in 3 engine variants. We've got a 1.4 liter petrol engine that has 250 Newton meters of torque and 150 horsepower. It also comes with a 180 horsepower 1.8 liter engine, which is the one I probably prefer as well because it has a little bit more power in it, but also has the same equal number of torque, which is 250 Newton meters. The third engine that we have actually that Skoda has given us is the 2 liter diesel engine, which has 143 horsepower, but only 320 Newton meters of torque. Now that's a lot of torque, which diesel engines, traditionally require, but it's a little bit more noisy and not as well refined as we find in the other, let's say the petrol cars that we have. And also some of the other diesel engine cars that I've driven aren't as noisy. So that's something that you want to consider when you want to buy this car. Maybe the amount of noise that the diesel engine makes isn't something for you. But definitely the 1.8 liter petrol engine with about 180 horsepower, that's a good one. So coming to the side profile of the Skoda Octavia, you can see that it has some very smooth and sharp running lines along the side. It actually gives the car a very neat look, yet it also gives it a premium finish as well. Now, when we compare the Skoda Octavia to other cars that are there in the Indian market, there's quite a few. Like the one we recently tested at the Valve team, the Audi A3. Now that's another very good car. It also has the very same engine that the Skoda Octavia has, but then you've got the badge of the 4 rings. So then why do you go with the Skoda Octavia? Of course, there's also other cars. If you want something not as premium, a little bit understated, then you can also go with the Toyota Corolla or then the Hyundai Elantra. Now these are mass-produced cars. They're not as flashy as let's say some of the premium segment, but they're also very good cars in the market out there. After that, of course, there's a car that my DOP also liked, which is the Volvo V40 hatchback, but nonetheless a very good-looking car. Also a very nice car that we actually like as well at the Valve team. Then of course you've got the Mercedes-Benz TriStar with the A-Class. Now that's another very good car as well. Or then you can go with a BMW X1 or something like that. If you want something larger in the SUV segment, you've got the all-new Jeep Compass for India. You've also got the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is all new for India as well. So then the question is, why would you go with a Skoda Octavia? Now, if you're one of those guys, perhaps like me, that wants a little bit punch in your car, then you probably want something like a pocket rocket. Now I'm talking about the Volkswagen GTI and even maybe the Fiat 500 Abarth. Now these cars can really move. Now the Skoda Octavia, very good car, weighs about close to 1400 kgs, a little bit sluggish, engine isn't as refined. So what does the Skoda Octavia have in store for us? Let's have a look and see what it does. So when we come to the back of the Skoda Octavia, you can see some of those sharp edges that flow to the back as well. That makes it give it a premium look and a little bit, you know, funky as well. A little bit youngish and, you know, kind of cool. I also like the daytime LED lights that run at the back as well. So these LEDs also give it that sort of plush, you know, feel to the car and give it a really sharp look as well. So all in all, I think the Skoda Octavia looks pretty nice and very functional from the back as well. Okay, so let's pop open the trunk and see what's in store for us. Now that's a pretty big trunk, 590 liters of it actually. And what I can tell you about this car is that it's much more different than some of the other cars that you'll find out there. It has what we call a lift gate. So essentially the entire rear windshield and the trunk will then lift up to give you that ease of loading and offloading goods from the back. Now, you also have a few latches at the back here that make it pretty easy and sort of convenient if you want to make some sort of compartments in the back section here, and that's really well sort of put. You can also put down the rear seats completely, so if you have something big that you're trying to lug around town, then you can push those seats completely down and then you've got so much more space. So essentially, in terms of sedans, I'd probably call this the Kim Kardashian of sedans. So when we come to the Skoda Octavia, the interior is all new as well. We've taken quite a few bits from the Skoda Superb, and actually that's done quite a few good things to the Skoda Octavia, because the older Octavia was quite old school and just didn't have that, you know, sort of premium feel to it. The new Octavia now has the entire dashboard and the instrument cluster that comes from the Superb. Actually, we also have a two-tone interior, as you can see, that the beige and the darker, you know, dark gray finish on top gives it a little bit of a different and nice feel. Also, the good thing is that it has a leather wrapped steering wheel, which adds to that premium feel of the car as well for the driver, especially when you're driving and you've got that leather steering wrap feel to it. Of course, the infotainment system, the 9.3-inch claimed by Superb, is also very easy to use and feature packed as well. Now, coming to the performance and drive of the Skoda Octavia, I can tell you that the car does accelerate fairly well and very rapidly actually, to about 180 kilometers per hour. Now, the previous Skoda Octavia, the original one that came to India, actually had the same situation. It was a car that came to India that had a lot of power but not the right handling, and going into the wrong hands without the right driving skills, that caused a lot of accidents. Now that's another concern for me when I come to the new Octavia. The car is beautiful. It's a very, very nice car. It accelerates really well, which gives you that thrill of driving. However, they've softened the suspension even more now. So the car, though for city streets, is very, very nice and very sort of comfortable to go over in city streets. You also have to, however, be careful on highway roads and higher speeds. That's because the new Octavia, with that softer suspension, does bounce around a little bit more. And on a higher speed, that bounce really will unsettle your car. So on one side, while the softer suspension does help for city driving, it doesn't quite help on the higher speeds. So it makes the car a little bit floaty and a little bit uncomfortable when you come to high speeds as well. But like I said, the engine is actually, though a little bit noisy inside the cabin, is a very good engine in terms of its performance capabilities. So coming to the interior of the Skoda Octavia, the infotainment system is quite literally the centerpiece of the car. Now if you turn it on over here for you guys, let me go through some of the buttons. We do have the navigation system here. We also have a menu here, interestingly, and we can go into the vehicle setup. Some very cool things in here, such as we have a background lighting button. Now what this does is that it illuminates and gives you options up to 10 different colors of ambient lighting for the interior, which is really cool. You have everything from like orange to red to blue to purple to pink, green, and all the other colors. The downside, however, is that though it does accent some of the interiors of the car, it doesn't actually give it the ambient lighting that you've chosen for the footwell. That remains the yellow color itself. So that's a little bit of a downside, but nonetheless, you know, it's very unique to have that ambient lighting system in a car of this segment as well. You can also have, what we have in here is the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto, and something called the Mirror Link as well. So for all you smartphone geeks, that's something in there that you can connect your phone to and enjoy some of your media systems and stuff like that as well. If you look a little bit lower, you have a dual zone climate control system that lets the passenger as well as the driver control their own temperatures, whatever suits them best. Just below that, you have the aux as well as a USB, and I do know that they have USB ports in the back as well, something really cool and really handy these days as well. So here you can see what we have is the electric seats. Of course, it has the memory seats as well, which is really nice. Unfortunately, this only flows for the drivers and not for the passenger seat. But nonetheless, it's kind of handy and nice to have the electric seats on the Skoda Octavia. Another feature that this car has, which is interesting, is the reverse parking camera, which is really handy nowadays with its sensors, of course. Now it also has something called the fatigue warning system. I haven't used that because I haven't been really tired driving this car, but I'm pretty sure it works fairly well. Now, one of the other features that this car has is the hands-free parking system that some of you may be aware of. Now, I wasn't quite thrilled with that one, only because we tried it and it does need ideal sort of scenarios for you to be able to park the car. I went back and forth quite a few times and I wasn't really thrilled about it. But nonetheless, the car is fully packed with features. Of course, safety is quite a feature in this car. It has 8 airbags in there, so the occupants are very well safe. The panoramic sunroof, that Skoda would like to call it, is just a slightly larger sunroof regularly. But it's expected in a car of this segment, and it's a good thing that Skoda hasn't forgotten to put it in the Octavia. Coming to the rear seats, the new Octavia has done a little bit better than the previous one as well. In terms of the rear leg room, we have a lot more leg room now than the previous one. However, there could have been a little bit more thigh support as well as a little bit support on the lower back. You also have here the USB ports, which are meant for charging your phones in case we have some chauffeur-driven cars and people want to charge their phones. Now coming to the center armrest, you've got a handy armrest over here where you can store a few drinks. It would also be nice if they had some sort of buttons here to control your infotainment system by, but then of course if you have the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto, you can well do that with your phone as well. Here we've got another feature where you can pull this lever and this drops down, and you can also access something from the trunk of your car as well. So if I had to summarize the Skoda Octavia, I'd probably have to say it's a good car. Well, then most other cars are also good cars. But it is very well appointed, and Skoda has done a very good thing in terms of bridging that gap between what the Octavia was to a luxury segment car and what the Octavia is today to a luxury segment car. So it is very well appointed, and it has a lot of the good features from the interior and the exterior that give some of the premium segment cars a good run for their money. So that makes Skoda Octavia a good all-round car. If somebody doesn't have a lead foot, if somebody's willing to compromise maybe a little bit on their space in the car, and if somebody doesn't essentially want all that premium segment stuff that comes along with it, then the Skoda Octavia is what you have. Essentially a car of jack of all trades but a master of none. In Skoda words, simply clever. It's positioned just right, exactly where they want the car to be, in between that luxury segment and just above the Toyotas and the Hyundais, let's put it that way, right? So now, if you are supported by a car and their service network, that's what makes the actual difference in a car. You end up buying a car and then you sometimes struggle with the after-sales service. I can tell you that here in Skoda in Hyderabad, the service is very good, and the dealer was an absolute delight to work with. So we didn't have any of those issues. So there's no reason why anybody shouldn't buy the Skoda Octavia. Now, the one major drawback to the Octavia that we thought at the Valve team was the price point. A lot of the people in our team thought that if it was priced just slightly, little bit, just a tad bit better, reducing it maybe, from the 27.5 lakh rupees for this car, maybe if it was around, the early 20s, 23, 24, then that would find a lot more buyers for this car. At the end of it all, how do we rate it? Well, we're actually quite happy with it. A lot of us thought that this car gets a 7 on 10. Make sure you give us a big thumbs up for this video, give us your feedbacks in the comment section, and also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the future episodes from the Valve team. Thank you so much for watching. Signing off from the Valve team, Amer Beg. Cheers.